Hello my raindrops, and welcome to the very first video of the new and improved fanfiction cloud. This series will be of me reviewing fanfictions I have read on my free time and maybe on this channel. I hope you come to enjoy this series. Today we will be reviewing Finding Family by RebelDoll on AO3. This is a Gen fanfiction with Eraser Mike that has 74,729 words and 32 chapters. The tags being adoption, crappy orphanage, child abuse, angst with a lot of fluff, Dad Zawa, Dad Mike, protective Aizawa, protected Yamada, Aizawa and Yamada adopt Izuku. The summary is, I see a lot of Eraser Mike adopting/raising a little Izuku. However, I was interested in writing a dynamic where they adopt him after he had already gotten into UA, aka Eraser Mike adopts a 15-year-old Izuku. The link to the fanfiction is down in the description. Now, for the review of these videos, I will always start with a spoiler-free review, followed by a review with spoilers. But do not worry, I will tell you when that happens so you could either skip or exit. Now, the review will be starting with the plot. The plot follows, obviously, Eraser Mike adopting Izuku. The way they obtain Izuku is quite angsty, as the tags are child abuse and crappy orphanage. You could fill in the circles. Overall, this has a very simplistic plot in the sense of how we start, although it's not the typical type of plot where you have the lead up, or it's not the lead up, but it's the little hue, and then lead up, climax, then drop. Most fanfictions, most of the fanfics is fluff and or hurt comfort. So for those who can't really handle hard angst, this is a perfect fanfiction for you. As for the pacing of the fanfic, I will say it has a fast yet slow paced. Fast in the sense that what the story happens is like kind of fast, but slow in the sense of the actual familiarship between the characters seems to take some time to grow, but other aspects can be quite fast. If you're into a fast pace of a fanfiction that is constantly on the move, then you will love this fanfiction. In the first couple chapters, it does have the POV and then the character's name, like POV Yamada, POV Aizawa, telling you what point of view we are following, but that stops down the line. I think I only saw it in chapter 1. From there, I don't think I remember seeing it ever again. Maybe chapter 2, but for the most part, it does stop after a while. I will say RebelDoll does have a tendency to over-explain things in the way of like mouth-feeding you information. There's also times where RebelDoll repeats themselves, like saying one thing and then repeating itself. A lot of the times they spell out stuff for the reader to understand. It wasn't so much it was annoying, but it can get quite annoying for certain readers, so keep that in mind. As for dialogue, I think RebelDoll does a great job at conveying realistic and good dialogue. Most did seem like something the characters would say, and they conveyed their dynamics so well, honestly. While reading, I did notice that RebelDoll doesn't use description much. For the most part, their writing style seems to be mainly action thoughts and dialogue. Not much description, so don't be expecting to get a whole explanation about how a room looks. It's not gonna happen. It happens once. On to the characters, and obviously the main characters are Aizawa, Yamada, and Midoriya. Throughout the fanfiction, they didn't feel OC-ish. Obviously there is some parts that are not canon, right? But it never felt so off the canon that the characters seemed OC-ish. They still portrayed the essence of the character from canon. Now, on to why you, my raindrop, should consider reading it. Honestly, it was such a nice read. It's about an average length of a book, so it is a good read. Not in the sense of writing, not saying it's horribly written, but it has its flaws and it has its ups. If you're more into a simplistic type of writing style, this is perfect for you. But it is entertaining to read. I promise you that. It has a lot of fluff and a lot of found family. If you really want to read found family with Dad Zawa, Dad Mike, that adopts Izuku, then this is the fanfiction for you. We get multiple moments of family bonding, and it's truly just found family in a little bow and published on AO3. So if you enjoy found family, and you really want to read more of that, this fanfiction is perfect for you. Now, as for how well RebelDoll captures the essence of My Hero Academia main, I think it doesn't, and it does in a sense of like the character essence. It doesn't in the sense of plot, because obviously we don't see any of the big plot points that happen in the My Hero Academia main in this fanfiction, but it does in the sense of the characters. As I said before, the characters don't really go that far off from the canon. Obviously, the fanfiction is not about being a hero or any of that. It's just family learning how to be a family. And Izuku, who has been, living a really harsh life, learning to feel safe. As to if the fanfiction adds something to My Hero Academia, yes and no. It doesn't really add more, but we do get to see more Dad Zawa and Dad Mike, so that's always a plus. Now, the Reckability Radar. Calculating. Reckability Radar is reading a 7 out of 10, which is not a bad rating. It's a really good rating. I am really judgy when it comes to writing. If your writing isn't good in the sense of the actual structure, then it should be good in the sense of plot. And if it's not in the sense of plot, it should be good in the sense of entertainment. There's a lot of reasons why, something would be more highly rated than something else. Whether it means it's, a masterpiece of a writing or a slice of life crack fic that makes me happy. Now, we are entering the spoiler storm. Go to this time, wherever I placed it. It's somewhere on the screen. Or just click off the video if you do not want to get spoiled. Now, normally plots and stories follow the build-up of the climax like I explained to you. It's what they teach you in English. It's what they teach me in English. My English teacher told me that all stories follow this formatting, and this is simply not true. Take this fanfiction, for example. It has no climax. Yes, it has many conflicts throughout the fanfiction, but it never drags. They aren't, big on the plot. For the most part, all conflicts that happen in this fanfictions get resolved rather quickly. They don't linger for long. This fanfiction has more of a sense of slice of life. The biggest conflict I can think of is Izuku's old orphanage. That does draw on for a while in the sense of Izuku healing from that, but it's never so big in your face kind of thing, Now for the pacing. I don't have much to add. As I said, it can go quite fast paced with the story itself. The story itself takes place in under a month's time period. As for the familiarship with Eraser Mike and Izuku, it does take till halfway through the story for Izuku to call Eraser Mike Dad and Papa. Sorry, I cannot read Papa or Pa, the P-A-P-A, without thinking Papa in my mind. Okay, moving on. Narration. Straps in. We're gonna be here for a bit. As I said, this fanfiction has a lot of spoon feeding. For example, he said quietly. He seemed to hesitate to speak too loudly or too much around them. This was in chapter 4. Now, we see the classic spoon feeding information. It doesn't have to tell us. It could have just told us, that he spoke quietly. It didn't need to feed us the reason. But we can forgive ones like these. They're not bad ones that annoy me, but ones like, shoulda went into the living room to wake Midoriya up so he could eat and get ready before they went shopping. Midoriya was wrapped in a blanket sleeping on his side, his face cuddled into a pillow. He looked so peaceful, shoulda almost felt guilty for waking him up, but the kid does need to eat. So he shook his shoulders, speaking softly. This is also in chapter 4, and in this example we see repetitiveness. We see him repeat multiple times, or not multiple times, but 2 times that he needs to eat and wake up. It's not a horrible one, but we can change up the sentence so it doesn't feel so repetitive. When I first read it, and I was going through my read through, it was annoying seeing how much that would pop up. So imagine a bunch of these throughout the whole time. where it's just mouth feeding you information and somewhat being repetitive on times. And they could start to add up and actually start to not diminish the story, but feel a bit repetitive and make you feel of, why did I read this? I didn't need to read this kind of thing. Like when My Hero Academia as a whole keeps on giving you flashbacks to moments you saw 5 minutes ago. Somebody take away My Hero Academia's fucking flashback scenes, please. They do not deserve to get flashbacks. Moving on. It's not that bad. It's actually a habit that authors have a lot, to mouth feed and be repetitive at times. It's a habit that's hard to break through. Sometimes in published bestsellers books, you could find things like this. Or, my writing. There's definitely times where, I have seen that, oh shit, I'm being repetitive there, or shit, I think I could have shown instead of telling, because the act of show, don't tell is quite difficult to figure out how to not just tell. You, as an author, want to tell your readers everything. This is your baby. This is your life. This is not your life, but this is your baby. This is your little baby, and you want everybody to understand your baby, right? And of course, you're gonna overcompensate by, doing more telling than showing. And sometimes showing is a little hard, okay? Gotta admit. So it's not something that I'm like dissing on this fan fiction. It's just something that, I see, and if you do not like reading, stuff like that, then maybe this is not the fan fiction for you. I have a script, and I'm reading off the script, if you haven't noticed. Alright, so, the dialogue in this fan fiction is just, I love it. Like, in chapter 1, okay, we can start looking into it, but we need to be sure we're ready for this, because before we make any decisions. How do we do that? Well, we've always talked about getting a cat. Fostering kittens seems like the perfect way to learn how to take care of another living creature, don't you think? This whole interaction really captures Shota and Isashi's relationship with a dynamic. It captures their personalities, and it truly does seem like something they would say in, My Hero Academia main. I mean, come on. Aizawa finding an excuse to get cats? That is so Aizawa, Or, like, in this moment in chapter 2. Calm down? Oh, that's Aizawa. My bad. Calm down. We need to handle this logically. Calm down. Calm down. You can't tell me you're not just as furious about this as I am. I am. This is my student who very well could be in danger, and I didn't notice a damn thing. But we need to think before we act. If we go out there now, guns blazing, we'll most likely be kicked out and barred from returning, and then there will be no helping Midoriya. Hisashi let out a long, suffering sigh. Why do you always gotta be the voice of reason? Because if I wasn't, you'd be in jail by now. This interaction is clearly inspired by the scene that happens in the show with the media break-in and what Hisashi says. It's a clear tribute to that, and it adds in a way, it makes it feel more organic and earned, because some tributes can feel a bit forced sometimes, not necessarily in fan fictions, but I see it a lot in main media, like the Mean Girls the musical, the movie. That's a sentence. But Mean Girls the movie, the musical, that one had some tributes into it where it felt cheap. It didn't capture the essence of why that's there, or, their dynamic and stuff, so that the tributes felt flat. And in this sense, it does not fall flat. I really love that. It captures it while, bringing it more light. It doesn't say exactly what happens then, but it is clearly inspired by that, and it adds its whole thing, and it makes it its own, little moment that I absolutely love so much. And there's more than just these moments that I'm showing you of Shota and Hisashi that really suits them and give us an insight into their dynamics, like in chapter 5. So, I have an idea. He began. That's never a good thing. Shota joked. Or, like in chapter 7, what about the zoo? Hisashi suggests excitedly. Why do you always say the zoo? I like the zoo. Why? Is it because you look like a cockatiel? Shota, that's just mean. The blonde pouted as his husband smirked at him. All of these really show dynamic, and I just love them so much. And here's some honorary mentions that we have of Namuri in just one chapter, chapter 18, where I'm just gonna say them. Whatever, Hisashi's a bad father, who cares? Now why haven't I gotten to see the kid yet? And no sidetracking, Namuri protested. And also, Tensei, you don't have any right to complain. The only people you have to put up with at work are sidekicks that look up to you like you're a god. We have to put up with hundreds of cocky teenagers that think they're pros already, Namuri argued. Honestly, I just love dialogue from RebelDoll, the author. It's just wonderful. And I said, Namuri, her lines, they never hit. I love that. I now will forever have in my head implanted, and have since I first read this, that Ingenium's sidekicks look at him like God. And that is just a wonderful thing to think. Now, as for description, as I said, there is none. So we're skipping over this part because there is no description except for one time. And the description is very simplistic. It is very, very simplistic. Just saying, oh, it's a room. Boom. That's your description. Living room. Boom. That's your description. I think there was only one time where they explained it, but it wasn't really in detail. Like, my writing style does have some explanation and description. I'm not really good at description, but it's there. There's people who have writing styles where they're very description heavy. They describe everything to you. You know, stuff like that. They're not a description, person, which is okay. That's good. Different writing style. Characters. Now, Aizawa and Yamada's cats, we're going to talk about characters and things that I've seen that they changed. Aizawa and Yamada's cats are not named Princess and Bastard, but instead Mochi and Hero. Not a bad change, I've seen other fanfiction changes, but yeah, just a small mention, because I wanted to mention that because I miss Princess and Bastard, please and thank you. Also, Hisashi's parents, in this fanfiction we see them, his mother is from England and his dad is from Japan, making Hisashi mixed. I see this happen sometimes in fanfictions, but not a lot, but still something that happens. Now, onto my unfiltered notes that are not going to be scripted at all. Everything from here on top has been scripted. I've been looking at a script. Now we're going to go on to my unscripted, no script, no nothing, notes. So, the way the orphanage takes care of Izuku, in this line, all of my notes are going to be followed by a moment in the fanfiction, so, then the head caretaker had started to yell at him, and he could no longer focus on anything else as pure terror had washed over him. Chapter 3. The way the orphanage treats Izuku, and how I bet any, adult counter this kid has had, and anything else, like, I bet the adults in that orphanage made sure that other kids also bullied Izuku, and this affects him. Like, imagine getting relentlessly bullied at your home, and then at school. Like, this is a moment where it truly shows Izuku's, what's it called? Trauma. Because just yelling at him, and he couldn't focus on anything else. The whole just couldn't focus on anything else, and fear, pure terror, washing over him, that is a trauma response that is really hard to get for most of the part, because to respond like that, where you somewhat disassociate and remove yourself completely, but keep that fear, but you're like, you can't focus on things, that is not a normal response for a regular trauma occurrence. No, that is something that is a very learned behavior. Now, this next part, which is also, no, that's not also chapter 3. Oh, I'm not allowed to leave the orphanage unless it's for school. Midori responds, as if it was the most normal thing. Chapter 5. He responds as if it's the most normal thing because for him, it is the most normal thing to not be allowed out, which is another form of manipulation in the orphanage side. To manipulate how much you could eat, how much you could get out, a little aspects of your life like that, it really implements in your mind that they're in control of all your aspects, and no matter what you do, you can't escape because they're in control. You can't do anything. It teaches the child to be, you know, learn helplessness, to not do anything, to leave, because in the end, what's the point? You know? All right. Next one, which is also chapter 5. Shura came over and wrapped his arms around his waist, kissing him. A small eep erupted then, and they looked up to see that Midori had walked into the living room. He was blushing profusely, and the two men weren't far off. Yeah, they needed to remember they had a kid now. This is a moment that I wanted to talk about a little bit because, one, this is probably the first time Izuku's seen two adults, probably actually liking each other. Two, it really shows how they're gonna have to change up their dynamics a bit. And I thought it was just a cute moment. Just like, oh yes, hold up, we have a child. Also, it wasn't like they were doing anything like super bad. It's just a little, kiss. I just wanted to mention that moment because that moment when I read it, it made me giggle and I loved it. This is another one in chapter 5. No, not teacher. They were technically his parents now. That was a weird thought. This is, as I said, they're already chapter 5, they already have Izuku, but they still haven't fully transitioned into the whole, we're your parents now. I do see some fanfictions where they go immediately into being like, we are your parents. And this was not one of those, moments, which I am glad. I am very, very much glad. Another chapter 5. Chapter 5 is a lot. Jesus Christ. Izuku was also not used to being given choices. Well, if he was honest, Izuku wasn't used to getting things at all, let alone things he picked out himself. He appreciated it. He really did. And it was so strange. And Izuku couldn't help but believe this little voice in the back of his head telling him that this wouldn't last, that they wouldn't want him here after a while, that they were going to hate him when they got to know him. But at the same time, they took him shopping. They bought him things. They got him ice cream. Surely that meant they cared about him, at least a little bit. Izuku just hoped that when they got tired of him, he didn't have to go back to Entel. Anywhere was better than there. Chapter 5. Clearly we see that he has trust issues in the sense of, I feel like, not in the sense of like, you're gonna freaking hurt me, but in the sense of one day you're gonna learn to hate me and I need to be prepared for that kind of thing. The trust issues, because there's trust issues obviously in that I'm not gonna trust you because you are gonna be an awful person. And then there's trust issues of I can't get attached to you because at one point you're gonna see me like everybody else sees me and you're gonna end up leaving me. Right? Which are two different ones. You would think they're the same, but no. There's a difference between you're gonna leave me and you're gonna hurt me. Right? There's a difference between you're nice now and you seem to be really, great now, but you're gonna leave me. Right? And the difference between you're acting nice, but you're not actually nice. I don't trust your niceness. See the difference? A lot of people don't think there's a difference, but there is a difference. And clearly Izuku has the latter type of that, the whole, I feel as though you're gonna leave me. Which, again, with what has happened to him, it's probably something that's happened before. So again, chapter 5, because chapter 5 has so many, Mike Sensei reached out to take his hand and lead him around the room, and Izuku was mortified when he had flinched hard. He could see the hurt in the man's eyes, but he pushed it away and instead took Izuku's hand in a beyond gentle grasp. If he flinched at your touch the first time, there should not be a touch again. In my opinion, I feel like this is where, if, for example, me, if somebody lifts their hand up, back when I was still healing from, certain circumstances, I would flinch hard, right? I do not want you to touch me afterwards. Do not put your hands on me because that would make me flinch again. Right? Obviously in this sense, it didn't affect Izuku, but it was a little nitpicky. It was like, I was like, I don't like that. Okay, moving on. And finally, not chapter 5, it's chapter 6. It's just that no one else has ever done anything like that for me. And I know it's stupid, but I just got a bit overwhelmed. You two have just been so kind to me, and I know that I don't deserve any of it, but I really appreciate it. Like, really, really appreciate it. Midoriya's voice was watery, but he smiled at them, tears still gleaming in his eyes. Clearly this is a big moment because Izuku is, why did I write this down? I don't know. Sometimes I write them down and I don't remember why I wrote them down. I don't think I remember. I'm gonna skip that one then. Okay, chapter 7. The fight ended when a particularly large wave left a chunk of seaweed on Hisashi's head. They stood there in complete silence, completely still for a moment. Then it happened. Midoriya nearly doubled over in laughter, holding his stomach and nearly crying in glee as he cracked up at the sight of his guardian covered in slimy seaweed. I love the beach scene, and it was so adorable, and I'm pretty sure that was the first time Izuku fully started laughing and really enjoying themselves, so I wanted to talk about that moment where that is the barrier. That seaweed is the barrier. And the fact that the beach that the barrier kind of blocked, not blocked, but opened up, like the floodgates for them to finally start really bonding, opened in the beach that Izuku cleaned up training. I found the fact that it happened there to be so poetic in my defense, in my, understanding. Now, this one's in chapter 9. He kind of felt guilty that they had to send the two kittens away for the weekend just because he moved in. It was the cat's home first, after all. Clearly we see where this is Izuku, putting his needs aside. Even if these cats would have probably been more than he could handle when he first arrived, his first thought isn't, oh, well, thank God, I had some time to adjust before the cats were here, right? It's, I shouldn't have kicked the cats away. I'm at fault kind of thing, right? Again, learned behavior of being constantly blamed for things. Now, we're jumping from chapter 9 to chapter 13. This is where we start, this is where I start not just putting everything I fucking read into my notes, and we start branching out. So, chapter 13. That was one thing about Bakugo. No matter how much he had bullied Izuku, he never used his lack of parents against him. And my only note about that is, bare fucking minimum! What do you mean? I know that's supposed to paint Bakugo in a, nice light. Moving on. Before they checked out, Shota had seen the snow globe with the featuring of the family of penguins inside. He added it to their purchase. Chapter 14. I love this because they added the gay penguins. Gay penguins. They went to the zoo and they saw gay penguins. And the fact that the two gay penguins had adopted an egg that was abandoned by another pair of mates. And what I love about that is the fact that, Izuku, Hisashi, and Aizawa saw this, the gay penguins, and they thought, us, our family. And I did not cry at the gay penguins. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not crying right now. I'm not. I'm actually not. I'm really close to tearing up, though. I'm not tearing up, though. But I'm really close. Now, chapter 17. Who the fuck is talking? Oh, I don't know who's talking. I think it's Dinky. Okay. I don't know, attention? Maybe he was trying to find a convincing excuse for why he has only started hanging out with us now, and that's all he could come up with. I hate how, one, the Baku squad found out that Izuku, why the fuck did my phone make that noise? That, Izuku was adopted by Eraser Mike, and their first thought is, oh yes, Izuku's faking it for attention. Moving on. Chapter 22. Hisashi was on the floor, laughing as Aizawa's phone dinged again. When he told the kid to keep him updated on where they were, he didn't mean a play-by-play on the whole trip. He shouldn't complain, though. At least he knew the kid was safe. And it felt pretty good to see Izuku referring to their apartment as home. He just wished that Hisashi would calm down. I love this because, yeah, of course, Aizawa, when you tell Izuku to keep him updated on where they are, Izuku's gonna tell you, getting on the train, exiting the train, walking to Todoroki's place, at Todoroki's place, walking back to the train, on the train, getting off the train, walking to Ida's place, at Ida's place. You know, like, dude, what did you expect? This is a traumatized kid. You tell him something, and he will do it. Chapter 23. He knew he just said he wanted to talk about it, but it was still hard to tell anyone exactly what he had went through. So this is obviously an instant where they were making Izuku, not making, but they were like, hey, Izuku, you need to tell us what happened, so that they can be, you know, what's it called? Held accountable. And obviously this line, the whole, you know, wanting to tell, but it being hard. There's obviously a difference between something being hard to tell and you wanting to tell. Just because something is hard for you to say out loud does not mean you're not ready for saying it. Sometimes saying stuff will never be easy, right? I know for a fact, for me, is sometimes it is the point where, like, hey, if it's so hard to say it, maybe you're not ready, right? But if it's to the point where, like, you really want to tell, right? You feel like it will lighten you, but it's hard to start, that's normal, right? You just have to read yourself and know what you yourself need and want. Moving on to the next one, which is chapter 24. Ding! Alien Queen. No, you guys knew before the sleepover, and it was my secret, so I'm allowed to talk to you guys about it. Bakubro. Newsflash, dipshit, it wasn't your secret. It was stupid Deku's. Now, in this instance, obviously, Mina had told all the other girls in a sleepover, on accident, but also not an accident, of the fact that Izuku was adopted by Eraser Mike. And obviously she's like, you guys knew before the sleepover, it's my secret to tell, blah, blah, blah. And Bakugo is clearly like, no. And I love this. I love this little moment of Bakugo, like, newsflash, dipshit, it wasn't your secret either. It is the only moment that I like of Bakugo in this fanfiction. Not the saying that Bakugo's horrible, but it's just, Bakugo doesn't really appear in this fanfiction, so. And this is my last note. Note from chapter 26. Dad, he sobbed. And man, Shota was not expecting to hear that word leave Izuku's mouth. He shook himself out of his shock. His surprise wasn't important right now. What was important was the fact that Izuku had just come to him in the middle of lunch, shaking and sobbing. He threw his scarf out and closed the door behind Izuku. So obviously Izuku's secret got out, or not it got out, but he found out it got out, right? And he's in distress. And his first reaction is to go to Aizawa. That is adorable. That is adorable. That is adorable. I love that so much. I mean, it really shows how much Izuku trusts these people, because in a moment of absolute despair and emotional distraught, the people you turn to are the people you trust the most, are the people that you trust when you're vulnerable. And obviously Izuku calling them dead is also a big moment, but normally when I see my favorite dad moments in either Eraser Mike or Eraser Mike adopting Izuku or Eraser Mike adopting Hitoshi, my favorite moments of like dad or like the first calling of dad is either a distressed dad or a distressed paw or the accidental Alright, see you later, Pa. You know, kind of moments. Those are my favorite. The accidental and then the obviously distressed one. So, yeah, that was the last note. I would love to hear your thoughts, my raindrops. Make sure to put them in the comments. And as always, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my channel. And thank you so much for watching.